Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Profluence Sports. We've been hitting soccer hard the last few weeks with the World Cup. So excited to welcome Evan Dabby from New Jersey Youth Soccer on. So Evan, appreciate you hopping on today and excited for this one. This is a good one. This touches all the different categories of the space that we haven't hit yet, especially on the grassroots side.
No, I appreciate it. We've been looking at what happens on the field and the focus there. So I'm excited to spend a few minutes talking about what happens off the field.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And give us the rundown of your journey in the soccer space, right? Just to paint a picture of the different levels you've seen of it, how you've progressed through it. That gives you, a unique view of where it's at today, and then ultimately what we're all here for of where's it going.
Yeah, there's been a lifetime of soccer, so I had the fortune of playing and got the chance to play through college, and that was just a great experience, both socially and for the sport. And that created my network, right? That's who I knew, and that's when it was time to come looking for jobs. Came across one, and through that network, got the first job at Major League Soccer, where I lived there for 15 seasons. And it was awesome as a young professional traveling around the country and producing events, cup games, all-star games, broadcast nationally, and was there for, continued growth of the sport and the league. But that was 15 years. And I like to joke, as I grew with it, I got to do things like oversee security and travel and venue design and sports medicine. And if we can joke for a minute, I realized I'm not sure I was qualified to do any of those things. Sports medicine, I couldn't even look at the slides during the conferences of the surgeries that they're trying to teach about. Security, I'm in the meetings with NFL and MLB and the major leagues, other major leagues, and I'm the only one who's never held or fired a gun. Team travel, don't have any travel agency experience, and venue design. I'm not an architect, but as we know, you work with good people, you engage with the right people. We had a lot of success in that areas, but the reality was, I looked back at 15 years in, and I was not sure the road ahead was the right one for me at MLS. And I don't know that I was the right for them and they were the right for me. And incredible relationship, and working together, I came across this next job, and it kind of came back to the roots at New Jersey Youth Soccer, growing organization, hands-on all areas, and I'm 12 years into this run.
Yeah, it's incredible, and we'll touch on this a bit later, but just of how it's evolved, right? A lot of people talking about the last World Cup in the U.S., and you had the launch of some of the you started to see the early signs of growth in the American space, right, from grassroots up, and now what is 2026 going to do to that? I mean, actually, we'll just start with that. I wanted to go a little bit more youth, but what do you see from that, right? What was the growth you saw when you first started at MLS, and then where do you see it today, going? Do you think this is the defining moment everyone's talking about, where now soccer pushes into, the hearts and minds of the next wave, and it becomes up there with the footballs and the basketballs? Well, I guess we can't say football, because if it really works, then we'll be just saying we'll have to come up with a new name for American football. But anyway.
Yeah, too confusing, right?
Right, it's crazy.
So the first year into my first job, you get your articles at MLS and what's in the news and educating staff, and everything was, is the league going to survive? And it was really comforting as an employee to figure out if we have a job the next day. And probably when the first year, the teams contracted. So you had this seminal moment where the league was, lost two teams, and you're wondering, where's this going? Now, as a 23-year-old, I'll figure that out. But it was not a very warm and fuzzy feeling. So we're obviously through that. There's not this talk about whether, MLS survives. There's not talk about whether the sport is going to continue. It's now where it's going to go. And I just actually got back from 2 days in Atlanta at the National Training Center. And if there's a question about whether the sport here is here to stay, you look at that training center, the Arthur Blank Training Center, and whatever, I think 100 million invested. It's seemingly, having not been around, I hear it's on par with any training site in the world. And that's a good sign for what we do foundationally. And the meetings were about, candidly, the youth space. I think the way I'd say it is the future is local first. I've heard people at MLS say that. The idea being, New Jersey Youth Soccer, 120,000 players within our umbrella. That should be 200,000, candidly, and we'll get to that conversation. But when that gets to 200,000, now we're building the base. Now we're building the players that are going to get us championships on the world stage. So yeah, it comes full circle.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really cool to see from your perspective of the growth, right? Of not knowing if you're going to have a job to now like, hey, look at these facilities. And the question is, and again, we'll get this of are youth athletes paying too much? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like there's now stability around it, which also shows people there's a lot of new emerging sports. And it's a side conversation. These things take time, right? Like even the
Mm-hmm.
most popular sport in the world is taking, some time to really ingrain into the US. But going to grassroots, going to the youth soccer space where you spend a lot of time, and we'll talk more about you guys here in a sec. But what does that world look like in terms of youth soccer? What
Mm-hmm.
trends are you seeing? What's changing? What's the current, state of youth soccer in the United States?
Yeah, it's the most dynamic I think ever. And again, I've referenced the last 2 days in Atlanta with my colleagues around the country. I think you're going to see the most change in the next year, more change in the next year than probably the prior 20. It's gotten fragmented. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of money in it. And I think there's eyes and awareness on what's wrong. And now that there's eyes and awareness what's wrong and everyone committed to it, there's real discussion about fixing that. So that's what's really exciting, and I think that recognition of back to the idea of local first. It's putting the player first. Candidly, I mean that's where it comes. We all talk about it as a nonprofit. We can live it. We put the player first. Good things happen. The one thing that I'll share, and it's kind of along those lines. We talked a little about the consortium of state associations. It's a group we formed couple of years back, 17 state associations working together. It's just looking at what we do differently. It's so easy to continue what you do year after year. What's hard is to reinvent. And I think on the business side, we consortium 17 state associations looking at the model differently. How do we leverage scale? How do we leverage shared services? How do we leverage sponsorships and really be a game changer?
Yeah, and I know shared services is a big discussion a lot in the youth sports world. Dave Giesland, who founded Three Step, talks a lot about that. If it's one of the biggest challenges of
Mm-hmm.
how do you, share resources. So you talked a little bit about, you have your consortium, you have, you guys, you have private clubs, you have now MLS leaking downstream, you have USL taking its roots. Give us the sort of diagram or how you think about the different stakeholders making up youth soccer today, where they fit in, how they're playing. You talk about the fragmentation, like what's all going on and how are these entities working together or not working together? Like what's that look like, just to give people an overview of like who the main players are when it comes to youth soccer?
Yeah, yeah. Our mission and our mission at New Jersey Youth Soccer is centered around connecting and empowering the youth soccer community, and it's easy to live that, and that's kind of personality. So yeah, you have these different entities, but at the end of the day, if you're mission aligned, it's easy to find solutions, right? So I'll use on the grassroots entry level space, MLS Go, kind of the soccer version of flag football for easy comparison's sake. Created a product that is in line with what we do in the rec space. And rather than looking at it as a competition, we said, let's sit down and figure out what you're trying to achieve, what your resources are, what our resources are, what our strengths are, because the great thing is they're investing a lot to get more kids playing. Same thing on the other side of the pathway, right? On the competitive side, you mentioned MLS continuing its expansion into the youth space. We worked to create an open cup, right? And that was the first of its kind. I gather we're going to start seeing way more of that, but something really proud with those clubs and, certainly awareness from the league office side, where let's forget about what competition and governing body you play in. Let's just get everyone playing. The best teams in the next week, later this month, will crown the first ever Open Cup champions. And I think it's recognizing what you have, thinking, being innovative, challenge the norm, and there's something good on the other side.
I agree. And as we hit that, next stride of this conversation, I think it's probably the right time to talk a little bit more about what you guys are doing at New Jersey Youth Soccer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who are you guys? Who are you serving? Why was it created?
Mm-hmm.
And then what are the goals going forward? Because it sounds like what you guys and some of the other state associations and these nonprofits are going to play a crucial part over the next wave of the growth of the game, especially here in the
Yeah.
States.
Yeah, I mentioned two employers in my career, and I recognize that, but I also feel like every year and every one of those jobs has been a different job, and that's part of evolving and growing, and where the organization that existed when I started versus now feels extremely different in a positive way, and credit to so many of the people involved. it's a great opportunity to recognize the staff. When I started a staff of 8, doubled in size, and the amount of retention and the consistency in the staff has really allowed us to grow. And I look forward to sharing some of those things that show the success. I mean, the only person I can think of us losing was an individual who started as an intern and became part-time, full-time director of operations, and now CEO of another youth soccer association. So I'd like to think the culture that the collective we have created is creating that success. One metric that we're super proud of is we haven't raised registration fees in like 10 years. Right? I don't know what product service that out there that hasn't raised its fees in 10 years, but I'd like to
Costco
find
hot
it.
dog. I think you guys and throw you guys in with the hot dog at Costco. That's about it.
There you go. I was always wondering how we'd get back to the hot dog. So there you go. You figured it out for us. But between that and diversifying revenue with sponsorships and grants, we've reinvented who we are, what we do. Again, for the player, our former president said something that is something I come back to and never lost on me is every time we raise the fee $1 is one more kid that's not playing. But I don't know. I don't think that's data driven, but the premise is sound. Like, let's keep doing what we're doing. We know the cost to play continues to be a challenge, and I think we're finding ways to combat that.
For parents, obviously, and I mean, it ties to athletes, but obviously they have other decision makers around them. Like, how are they, now thinking about the space? Like, is there a lot of pressure to go into private clubs? Is there more pressure to go academies? Like, how are you guys navigating? Because now name, image, and likeness is a big thing. So I'm sure people are like, oh, well, is there money in college for me? Right. Which, I don't know, probably isn't a ton in soccer. But anyway, that's a different discussion. How is like that evolved over 10 years? Hey, you don't raise a fee. But over the last 10 years, now there's a lot more pressure and a lot more opportunity of like, hey, there's big potential if I can, and we're seeing more American stars break out. And so I'm sure now people see some of the US players, especially over the next couple of weeks, like, hey, I could be that.
Yeah. And I think that's a great thing to see players succeed at the highest level and become world stars and names. And that's exciting for the sport. We want to create that. I think for the parents, it's education. I think we're really going to focus next phase on helping the parents understand it. I think we'll see the pathway get clearer. There's a lot of focus from U.S. soccer and everybody. There's all hands on deck from the soccer community to find a better path because we're not doing enough, right? I mean, the U.S. men's national team is, in the top tier of the world, but we're not the best, right? We're not seen as the inevitable world champion. And that's not good enough for the United States. Like, that's not the bar that we hold to be in a top tier. So we know that's there. And I think, education is a big part of it. And there's options, right? Tab Ramos, New Jersey great, came out to one of our events a number of years ago to help with our Young Olympians program, 10 and 11-year-olds. Gave a speech, gave his perspective. He's been through everything as a player, as a coach. He's coached at literally every level. And he talked to the parents and gave them advice. You always end your talk and say, any questions? No questions. And sure enough, as it's breaking down, every parent comes to him and says, hey, my kid, it's in this club. It's the right place. And I was over his shoulder just to make sure that he was comfortable. And it was so consistent and so solid. He said, is your kid playing? Yes. Is your kid happy? Yes. What do we need to do here? And there was 3 or 4 of those. And obviously, if the kid's not happy, that's a different issue. But I lived it with my own kids. And when they're happy, they're going to keep playing. And when they're not, it doesn't matter what we can do, what coach, how much money. It's just that it's kind of that simple.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think the joy of the game is big. Like, I think I went through that in basketball for sure. There's always ups and downs, but the more you enjoy it, the better it is across. And it solves a lot of other problems for sure.
It's no different. I'm 40 years old, or let me phrase that. I'm playing on over 40 team. I've qualified for an over 50 team, and it's where am I going to have the most fun? I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah. And across you guys, the org, right? You talked about the education component, you have the development, do you host tournaments? Like, what's sort of everything that goes into the org? How many players is it serving? Like, what's sort of the data, some of the, everything around it?
Yeah, we're projecting north of 120,000 players registered this year, and it's been a steady increase in recent years. And I hope that means that we're doing a good job in providing the right services. Within the 120,000, About half are recreation and half are competitive, as they define it for their registration. Certainly, the rec is something we're celebrating, finding all sorts of resources within rec. We also have a program for players with disabilities, so 1,000 players across the state. Top Soccer, fully funded. The registration fee is fully funded by RWJ Barnabas Health. So these kids are getting out there with their registration fees and their basics covered, which is something we're really proud of. Then there's the state cups, approximately 1,000 teams across 3 levels of competition. ODB program that serves another 600 players. Coaching education. So, I think that goes back to where we see the future, or U.S. soccer is seeing the future and the community is local first, right? We need to be full service to the game. We need to make sure we're doing better with referees. I want to connect to the adults, which is another association. And I think that's something that we can do better in the future and provide the service, not just, the player that's striving to play at the highest level, but the players that are really just trying to enjoy it as long as they can, because they get, friendship, competition, life lessons, deal with adversity, all the things that we know sport does.
Yeah, no, it's multifaceted. And on that, how do you think of the technology component as well, right? I'm sure you've seen a lot of ways of that. Like you guys, you have half the players, so let's just call it 60,000 that are, they want to be seen. They want to get to the college or the pro ranks. What are you doing around that? Or just how are you guys even thinking about technology or partnerships? I know you mentioned MLS Go, but obviously there's wearables and cameras and analytics, and there's everything these days. How are you guys approaching that? How are you thinking about partnering with folks? We get a lot of, obviously, founders that listen to this podcast that might be building those sports tech companies. Like, how are you guys evaluating and thinking about that side of the game as well?
We have a number of partners in the tech space because we just know that's the future. Data, candidly, I think we need to do better. So I'm the first to admit that, but that's part of the evolving nature. I mean, 12 years ago when I started, I think youth soccer was that truly that volunteer-based organization, driven, by a board that was operational. And now we've evolved to a strategic governance structure that is innovative. So camera side, you mentioned partnership with Trace. I get the notifications in my kids' games so I can watch the video because you learn so much by watching. Hit check is one about player safety. So we're really proud to introduce that to our families to help with concussion management. P-Motion, which is an app that helps the mechanics of the players to prevent injury. Those are just a few examples. I think, like I said, I think we can do more, and we're just want to help the players on the field, stay on the field, be better, do all the things that we know are important.
Yep. And in terms of like the future of the game, things that give you the most optimism, but then also the reverse side of that, any things keeping you up at night? Like, how are you looking at it now? It progresses, because it seems like again another inflection point, and I guess we can put it around the World Cup. But it's like, I'm sure there's things you can be super optimistic about, and I'm sure there's also some things you're like,
Let's start with the negative and finish on the positive. So I think I don't think it's soccer. I think there's something culturally, the environment of how we interact, and that doesn't lend to the environment. The reports that we get too often of players, of parents, more so candidly, it's the sidelines environment. And I think it's across all sports. The viral videos, like one is too many, and their treatment of refs is just abhorrent. So I hope there's ways to solve that. I don't think it's a soccer issue. I think it's a cultural issue. But we got to figure out, and hopefully we can be leaders in that in some way. But on the positive side, you're right. There's a generational moment. We have the World Cup, this starting in a week. We have the Women's World Cup next year, the 31. The Women's World Cup, we believe, coming to the United States, LA 28. The amount of opportunity for big events to inspire people is, again, a generational moment. So I know what it did for me in 94 watching New Jersey legends, Harks, Ramos, Miola. And, we have a couple New Jersey guys getting onto the field, and Aronson and Turner. So, and that's in every place of the country.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And a lot of discussion around New Jersey, New York with the World Cup. What's the pulse on the ground from the folks actually living it, not just living there, but also participating in soccer every day. Feel the buzz yet? We've seen good things, bad things. Like, how are you guys feeling about it? And are you doing anything around it as an org?
Yeah, I'll start with the buzz. I mean, I've been thinking about this for years. certainly more so, and it's ramping up. So my lens is different than the average person, but you can feel the change again to and from the airport, the amount of ads on the parkway and the turnpike and then the airport. So you're starting to see it. This morning was just at an event at school, and the woman behind me was talking about how she's getting excited. So you just start to see the conversation every day. The momentum's going to pick up, the media interest and stories of what's going on in the communities. And we're excited that with all the activations that are going on, we're supporting the fan hub at Sports Illustrated Stadium with the Red Bulls and the host committee. There's Goya Present Flag Cities in multiple markets. And even outside of the traditional, the Jersey Shore Blue Claws, minor league baseball are going to, put on a watch party. So we're focused on supporting as many events as we can because we have global attention and we're making it into local opportunities. So we're going to tell our database of 200,000, here's what's going on in your community. Check it out. I mentioned a few, there's more. The laundry list of opportunity to enjoy.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm in Florida, so I'm gonna hop down to Miami for one of the games, and I don't know. We'll see if I enjoy it. Maybe I'll pop around to a few more. I've never been to a World Cup game, so finally taking advantage of it. So I'm certainly excited.
And I think that's what's going to be most exciting. I think certainly, the way it's been explained in New Jersey is that we're going to have 8 Super Bowls in the next month. And everyone knows what the Super Bowl is. It's a great cultural moment. We all look forward to it. It's something we put on our calendar. And I think that, again, that's what gets the exciting part. I don't think there's anything that matches the passion of these games. And until you see it, feel it, you can guess maybe, but it's game changing. So we know that people will get inspired. I'm excited just to see and feel it. You think you know what's going to happen in the communities, but I think it's going to be a surprise and a really good surprise for many.
Yeah, I think so as well. And on that, how do you think about 10 years from now when we look back? I think it's obviously, what do they say, like hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah.
But like it was clear, like 1994 worked really well, like sort of early MLS days. You could even say like 2016 to today, like, hey, continue to see growth in 2036, whatever, 10 years. From an org, what are you guys looking at of like, hey, we've been doing our job well, this is a success. And then also just the state of soccer in the US, like, hey, the country came together and, this was a good 10 years. Like we put on a good run. Like, how do you think about that internally of what you want? And then also just as a whole of like, hey, the soccer space and the New Jersey youth soccer, like we did our jobs to continue, the right initiatives of the game in the world, in our country.
Yeah, 94 launched the next phase, right? It was forming a Major League Soccer and the foundation there. 99, when the women won the World Cup, that inspired a generation of women. And I think 2026, with the focus on the game, the commitment from U.S. Soccer and Soccer Forward, the charitable arm, the investment and the support is unprecedented. So now we need to use that and make it game changing for the long term pathway. We talked about parents and where they go and the confusion that exists. I see 10 years fixing that. The cost to play, as we use the World Cup and what we do locally, the brand investment and even the community investment. New Jersey Youth Soccer got its first grant from the state of New Jersey, and we're going to turn back into local programming, accessibility, inclusion. And the same thing from the brand side. We have, an exponential growth over the last few years of partners, whether it's local partners like Onnit Creative Solutions, or Sportsline that does field lining, the community base that is great to integrate and complement that with national brands, right? Dick's Sporting Goods, Prime. We're engaged with Bank of America with their work at Soccer at Schools, and New York Life funded an after-school Let's Play program, fully funded for underserved communities. So there's these seeds that I think clearly growing, and 10 years from now, we need to see that 10x.
Yeah, and I always like to conclude with this, and I think it's a good way to sort of round this out. What's a trend or what's something, and we'll at least tailor this to soccer, that more people should be paying attention to, or people aren't thinking about that you think more people should be?
And with parents, communities, just the whole?
Anything.
Yeah, I would just say the benefit of I look at it, I got a life out of soccer, right? So there was the growing up, friends, and competition and health. Okay, that's one. Easy to say that. It led to opportunity at college. I happened to play at college, but not everyone. I know that's getting more and more competitive, but the intramurals, like, it still keeps you in a social circle. My friends that I had for 4 years of school, I had from day one because of the sport. I had a career in it, right? And obviously stopped playing, but there's more and more opportunity between youth, between pro, the minor leagues of sports. So, there's the 120,000 players that I mentioned that are playing, and retention is a big issue. So if we fix the retention issue, it's not just about at 10, 11 saying, are you going to have a life on the field? No, it's about having a life with the sport, on the field, off the field.
Yeah, it's well said. And I think what you're getting at is, hey, don't look at everything as just business opportunity. Look at everything else that flows off of a sport. And also, like, I know there's a lot of, animosity or whatever you want to call it in the world or a country, but it's like, how cool is it, for you, where you've got to spend your whole life around a game, right? And to build and impact a ton of people in your life. Like, I think that's really, really cool and a good way to sort of take this home. But yeah, Evan, definitely enjoyed this conversation. Appreciate you having on and sharing your insights. And where can people learn more about New Jersey Youth Soccer, get info? I know we have a big listening base in New York City, which extends, obviously, a lot of those people live in New Jersey. So it'd be great. Any more from your side of where people can get up to speed?
Yeah, certainly invite people to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, as well as New Jersey Youth Soccer. We have the website, but yeah, the social channels is where we like to stay really active, share what we're doing almost day to day. And there's going to be a ton of content coming out in the next few months. So we're excited about, the road ahead, and appreciate you giving this platform, and really appreciate what you do.
Thanks.